What happens when a billionaire CEO decides to walk through her own company unannounced, only to be told she doesn't belong there? Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected moments, and sometimes justice arrives faster than anyone could imagine. The morning sun cast long shadows across the gleaming towers of downtown Atlanta as Zara Williams stepped out of her sleek black sedan. At 28, she had built an empire from nothing. Williams Tech Solutions now employed over 15,000 people across 12 countries. But today, as she placed a protective hand over her 5-month baby bump, she wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or board meetings. She was thinking about the future she was building for the little one growing inside her. Zara had decided to make an impromptu visit to one of her smaller satellite offices in the Buckhead district. She'd been meaning to check on this location for months, but her pregnancy and the demands of running a billion-dollar company had kept her busy. Today felt different, though. Maybe it was the nesting instinct kicking in, or maybe it was the realization that in 4 months, she'd be responsible for more than just her business. She'd be responsible for another human being. The building wasn't one of her flagship locations. It housed about 200 employees who handled client relations for the Southeast region. Zara had specifically chosen to dress down for this visit. Dark jeans, a flowing navy blouse that accommodated her growing belly, and comfortable flats. She wanted to see how her company really operated when the CEO wasn't expected. As she approached the modern glass building, Zara felt a flutter of excitement. These surprise visits always taught her something new about her organization. She'd built Williams Tech on the principle that innovation came from every level, not just the executive suite. Some of her best ideas had come from conversations with entry-level employees who saw problems and solutions that management missed. The lobby was sleek and professional, decorated with the signature blue and silver of her company's branding. Zara approached the security desk, where a young man in his 20s looked up from his computer screen. "Good morning," she said with a warm smile. "I'm here to visit the Williams Tech offices upstairs." The security guard glanced at her, then did a double-take. His eyes widened as recognition dawned on his face. "Ms. Williams? I wasn't expecting. We didn't get any notice that you were coming." "That's the point," Zara laughed gently. "I like to see how things really run. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. Could you just let me up? I have my executive badge." "Of course, ma'am. Right away." The young man, his name tag read Marcus, practically jumped out of his chair. "The Williams Tech office is on the 15th floor. Elevator bank to your right." "Thank you, Marcus. And please, don't call ahead. I want this to be a surprise." As the elevator climbed to the 15th floor, Zara took a deep breath. She'd built this company from her college dorm room with nothing but a laptop, a dream, and an unshakable belief that technology could solve real problems for real people. 8 years later, she was one of the youngest black female billionaires in the world, but success hadn't changed her core values. She still believed that her employees were her greatest asset, and she worked hard to create an inclusive environment where everyone could thrive. The elevator doors opened to reveal a bustling office space. The familiar hum of productivity filled the air, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, the soft murmur of collaborative conversations. It was music to her ears. This was what she'd built. This was her legacy. Zara stepped into the main corridor, noting the motivational posters on the walls and the employee recognition board near the entrance. She was pleased to see that the local management was maintaining the company culture she'd worked so hard to establish. A few employees glanced her way as she walked past, but most were focused on their work. She was making her way toward what appeared to be the main work area when she heard a sharp voice behind her. "Excuse me." "Hey." Zara turned around to see a woman in her 40s striding toward her. The woman was professionally dressed in crisp white blouse and black pencil skirt, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Everything about her demeanor screamed authority, or at least the kind of manufactured authority that came from being given a small amount of power. "Can I help you?" Zara asked politely, though something in the woman's tone already had her on alert. The woman looked Zara up and down with undisguised disdain, her eyes lingering on Zara's pregnant belly and casual attire. I don't know how you got up here, but you clearly don't belong in this office. This is a professional workplace, not some social services building. Zara felt her breath catch. In all her years of building this company, through all the challenges she'd faced as a young black woman in the tech industry, she'd never expected to encounter this kind of treatment in her own building. I'm sorry. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Zara said calmly, though her heart was pounding. I don't care who you think you are, the woman interrupted, her voice growing louder and drawing attention from nearby employees. This is a place of business. We don't allow random people to just wander around our offices. I don't know if you're looking for a handout or what, but you need to leave. Now, several employees had stopped working and were staring at the confrontation. Zara could see the mixture of confusion and discomfort on their faces. Some were pulling out their phones, no doubt to record what was happening. Ma'am, I really think you should, one of the younger employees started to say, but the woman cut him off. Don't you dare question my authority, David. I'm handling this. She turned back to Zara, her face flushed with anger. I said leave. Security. Zara took a deep breath, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. She thought about her unborn child, about the world she was bringing this baby into, about all the time she'd been underestimated or dismissed because of her race, her gender, or her age. But she also thought about the company she'd built, the values she'd instilled, and the responsibility she had to every employee who worked under the Williams Tech banner. I understand you're just trying to do your job, Zara said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside her. But I think you should know that my name is Zara Williams, and I own this company. The woman's face went through a series of expressions, confusion, disbelief, and finally, a dawning horror as the reality of the situation began to sink in. Around them, the office had gone completely silent. Even the phones seemed to have stopped ringing. That's not possible, the woman stammered. You're too young. And you're black, Zara supplied gently. Pregnant? Not what you expected a CEO to look like. The woman's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Behind her, Zara could see other employees slowly gathering, some with their phones still recording, others looking mortified by what they'd just witnessed. Ms. Williams, a voice called out from across the office. A middle-aged black man in a suit was hurrying toward them, his face a mask of professional panic. This had to be Gerald Thompson, the regional manager she'd hired 6 months ago but had never met in person due to her pregnancy complications. Mr. Thompson, I presume, Zara said, extending her hand. We finally meet. Ms. Williams, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were coming, or I would have. You would have what? Made sure your employees knew how to treat people with basic human decency. Zara's voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath it now. The woman who had confronted her, Zara could see her name tag now. It read, Janet Morrison, Senior Account Manager, was backing away slowly, her face pale. Ms. Williams, I didn't know. I thought. You thought what? Exactly, Ms. Morrison? Zara asked, turning to face her fully. You thought that because I'm a young black woman, I couldn't possibly belong in a professional environment? You thought that because I'm pregnant, I must be looking for charity? Help me understand your thought process here. The office was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Zara was aware that this moment would define not just Janet Morrison's future, but the culture of this entire office. Every eye was on her, waiting to see how the CEO would handle this situation. I was just trying to maintain security, Janet said weakly. We've had issues with people wandering in who didn't belong. And what exactly made you think I didn't belong? Was it my skin color? My pregnancy? My casual clothes? Because I'm curious, what does someone who belongs in your version of Williams Tech look like? Janet had no answer. She stood there, trembling slightly, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd done. Zara looked around the office at the faces staring back at her. She saw shame, embarrassment, fear, and in some cases, defiance. This wasn't just about one employee's behavior. This was about the culture that had allowed such behavior to flourish. I'm going to leave now, Zara said finally. I need some time to think about what I've learned here today. Mr. Thompson, please ensure that everyone continues with their work. We'll be in touch very soon." As she walked back toward the elevators, the office remained silent. The only sound was the clicking of her flats against the polished floor. When the elevator doors closed behind her, Zara finally allowed herself to exhale. The ride down felt like an eternity. When she reached the lobby, Marcus, the security guard, looked up hopefully. "How was your visit, Ms. Williams?" Zara paused, considering her words carefully. "Educational," she said finally. "Very educational." That evening, Zara sat in her home office in her Buckhead mansion, overlooking the city lights of Atlanta. Her husband, Dr. Michael Williams, a successful pediatric surgeon, found her there hours later, still staring out the window with her laptop open beside her. "How was your day?" he asked, settling into the chair across from her desk. Zara told him everything. About Janet Morrison's assumptions, about the office culture that had allowed such behavior to exist, about the employees who had stood by and watched, and about the few who had tried to intervene. Michael listened in silence, his jaw tightening as the story unfolded. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" he asked finally. Zara turned to look at him, her hand resting on her belly where their child was growing. "I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. I'm going to make sure this never happens again, not just in that office, but in any Williams Tech office anywhere in the world. You're going to fire Janet Morrison. I'm going to fire everyone." Michael raised an eyebrow. Everyone in that office. Every single employee." Zara's voice was steady, but he could hear the emotion underneath. "Michael, what happened today wasn't just about one person's prejudice. It was about a culture that allowed that prejudice to flourish. It was about the employees who stood by and watched discrimination happen without saying a word. It was about a management structure that failed to create an environment where everyone feels welcome and valued. That's 200 people, Zara. 200 jobs. I know exactly how many jobs it is." Zara pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. "And I know exactly what it's going to cost the company. About $15 million in severance packages, recruitment costs, and lost productivity. But you know what? That's a fraction of what this company makes in a single quarter. And it's a small price to pay for making sure that what happened today never happens again." Michael was quiet for a moment. "You're sure about this?" Zara thought about the child growing inside her, about the world they would inherit. She thought about every young black woman who might one day work for Williams Tech, about every employee who deserved to feel safe and valued in their workplace, about the legacy she wanted to leave behind. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The next morning, Zara arrived at the Buckhead office at 8 a.m. sharp, this time dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit that accommodated her pregnancy. She was accompanied by her head of human resources, her general counsel, and a team of security personnel. The office buzzed with nervous energy. Word had clearly gotten out about the previous day's incident, and employees kept glancing toward the elevator bank with anxious expressions. Gerald Thompson met them at the elevator, looking like he hadn't slept all night. "Ms. Williams, thank you for coming back. I prepared a full report on yesterday's incident, and I've already begun disciplinary proceedings against Ms. Morrison." "That won't be necessary, Mr. Thompson," Zara said calmly. "Could you please gather everyone in the main conference room? Everyone. Every single employee in this office." Within 10 minutes, the conference room was packed. Some employees stood along the walls while others crowded around the large table. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. Zara stood at the front of the room, her hands folded calmly in front of her. She looked out at the sea of faces, some defiant, some ashamed, some simply confused. "Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Zara Williams, founder and CEO of Williams Tech Solutions. Yesterday, I made an unannounced visit to this office. What I experienced here has led me to make a decision that will affect every single person in this room. You could have heard a pin drop. When I built this company 8 years ago, I had a vision. I wanted to create a workplace where innovation thrives, where every employee feels valued and respected, where diversity isn't just a buzzword but a lived reality. I wanted to build a company where a young black woman like myself could walk into any office and be treated with the same respect as anyone else. Several employees shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Yesterday, I learned that we have failed to achieve that vision in this office. Not only was I personally subjected to discrimination and disrespect, but I watched as the majority of you stood by and allowed it to happen. A culture of discrimination doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because good people choose to do nothing when they witness injustice. Janet Morrison, who was sitting in the back row, had tears streaming down her face. Several other employees were staring at their hands. Now, I could stand here and lecture you about diversity and inclusion. I could implement new training programs and policies and hope that changes hearts and minds. But I've learned something in my years as a CEO. Sometimes the only way to change a culture is to start over completely. Murmurs began to ripple through the room. Effective immediately, every employee in this office is terminated. The murmurs exploded into gasps and exclamations. Someone in the back shouted, "You can't do this." Zara waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "I absolutely can do this, and I'm doing this. However, I'm not doing it vindicatively. Every employee will receive a severance package equal to 6 months' salary, plus full benefits coverage during that period. You'll also receive positive references for any work that was satisfactory prior to yesterday's incident." "But this isn't fair," someone called out. "We didn't all do what Janet did." Zara's gaze swept the room. "You're right. Not all of you actively discriminated against me. But how many of you spoke up? How many of you said, 'This is wrong'? How many of you tried to intervene when you saw another human being treated with disrespect and cruelty?" The room fell silent again. "This is what accountability looks like," Zara continued. "In a healthy workplace culture, discrimination cannot survive because good people don't allow it to flourish. When good people stay silent in the face of injustice, they become complicit in that injustice." A young man near the front raised his hand tentatively. "Ms. Williams, what about those of us who did try to say something?" Zara looked at him. She recognized him as David, the employee who had tried to speak up yesterday. "What's your name?" "David k1ck, Mom." "Mr. Chun, you and the 3 other employees who attempted to intervene yesterday will be receiving a call from our HR department within the next week. We'd like to discuss opportunities for you within other Williams Tech locations, with promotions and salary increases commensurate with the courage you showed." David's face lit up with relief and gratitude. "For everyone else," Zara continued, "I want you to take this experience and learn from it. The next time you're in a workplace and you see someone being treated unfairly because of their race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic, speak up. The next time you witness discrimination, act, because your silence makes you complicit." She paused, looking out at the faces before her. Some were angry, some were ashamed, but many were thoughtful, processing what she'd said. "I want to be clear, this decision wasn't made in anger, though I was certainly angry yesterday. This decision was made in love. Love for the company I've built, love for the employees who deserve better, and love for the child I'm carrying who will inherit the world we create today." Zara placed her hand on her belly, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by anyone in the room. "Williams Tech will continue to operate in this location. We'll be hiring 200 new employees over the next 60 days. We'll be implementing new training programs, new policies, and new leadership structures to ensure that what happened yesterday never happens again. And we'll be creating a workplace where everyone, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, knows they belong." She looked directly at Janet Morrison, who was sobbing quietly in the back row. "Ms. Morrison, I want you to understand something. Yesterday, you didn't just discriminate against me. You discriminated against every employee in this room who doesn't fit your narrow definition of who belongs in a professional environment. You created a hostile work environment that hurt everyone, not just me. I hope you use this experience to examine your own biases and become a better person." Janet nodded through her tears, unable to speak. "The HR team will be meeting with each of you individually over the next 2 days to discuss your severance packages and transition plans. I want to thank those of you who have contributed positively to this company over the years. Your work has been valued, even if your silence yesterday was not." Zara gathered her papers, and prepared to leave. I hope all of you will think carefully about the kind of workplaces you want to be part of in the future and the kind of colleagues you want to be. Thank you for your time. As she walked out of the conference room, the silence behind her was deafening. But this time, it wasn't the silence of complicity. It was the silence of people forced to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their choices. 6 months later, Zara stood in.